Today we're going to be talking about the 7 sentence types that appear in English syntax. You can find these in Chapter 5 of your class text. We're going to begin by talking about action verbs. Action verbs are things like play, run, hit, jump, a verb that clearly shows that the subject is doing some sort of action. As we talk about action verbs, we want to keep track of a few things to remember. So we're going to make some notes here. The first thing is that subjects in sentence types with action verbs are always noun phrases, but are never prepositional phrases. The second thing we want to be aware of with action verbs is that when we're dealing with action verbs, we're always going to be on the lookout for some type of object. Specifically, we're looking for a direct object, which is always a noun phrase, but never a prepositional phrase. Direct objects answer the question, who or what? In order to understand those definitions, we need to know what a noun phrase and a prepositional phrase are, so we'll define them down here. A noun phrase is an optional determiner followed by an optional adjective plus a noun plus an optional prepositional phrase. A prepositional phrase is a preposition plus a noun phrase. There are 4 types of action verb sentence structures. We're going to start with the first one, which is sentence structure 1, and this one actually does not have an object. It's simply a subject plus an intransitive verb. That intransitive verb is an action verb, but it does not have a noun phrase object following it. Let's look at an example together. In the sentence, I danced in the park, we have the verb danced, which is an action verb, followed by in the park, which is a prepositional phrase, the preposition in, followed by the park. Because there are no noun phrases that are not tied up by prepositions following the verb, we do not have an object. When there is no object in an action verb type sentence, then we call the verb intransitive. So this is sentence type 1, subject plus intransitive verb. The next sentence type, which is sentence type 2, is also an action verb, and in this sentence we do have an object. We have a subject followed by a transitive verb followed by a direct object. Let's look at a sample sentence together. In the sample sentence, I hugged the girl, we find the verb hugged, which is an action verb, is followed by the noun phrase, the girl. Because there is no preposition in front of this noun phrase, then this is eligible to be an object. We can also do our diagnostic tests and say, I hugged who? The girl. Therefore, we have all of the requirements to say that this, the girl, noun phrase, must be an object. We can therefore say that this is sentence type number 2, subject, transitive verb, plus direct object. There are times when an action verb actually has 2 different objects following it. In that case, we call it a ditransitive verb and say that it has both a direct object and an indirect object. This is sentence type 3. It's a subject, followed by a ditransitive verb, followed by a direct object, followed by an indirect object. We need to now define what an indirect object is. An indirect object is similar to a direct object in that it can be a noun phrase that follows the action verb, but unlike the direct object, the indirect object can occur within a prepositional phrase. The indirect object is going to answer the questions to who, to what, and for what. Let's look at the simple sentence, I gave the girl a gift. We have our action verb gave, but this time it's followed by 2 noun phrases. First, the girl, and also a gift. Now this is a problem because we have to figure out which of these is the direct object. And so we need to go to our other diagnostics and say, I gave what, I gave who, The thing that's important here is to figure out what or who is being given. If the girl is the thing that's being given, then in some way the girl herself has become a gift. That's not the meaning of this sentence. When we say, I gave the girl a gift, the thing that's being given is a gift. So we can say, I gave what? A gift. I gave it to who? The girl. A gift becomes our direct object, and the girl becomes our indirect object because it answers the question to whom or for whom. This is sentence type 3. Subject plus ditransitive verb plus direct object plus indirect object. Recall from our things to remember that an indirect object can actually occur in a prepositional phrase while a direct object cannot. In the sample sentence, I gave a gift to the girl, we see a noun phrase, a gift, followed by a prepositional phrase, to the girl. The action verb gave has a direct object, which is a gift. We know this because it's the only noun phrase following the action verb gave, and it answers the question, I gave what? I gave who? I gave a gift. But we can't stop there. We need to continue looking for an indirect object because we know that there could be one in that prepositional phrase. So we continue with our diagnostics saying, I gave a gift to what? I gave a gift to who? And we find the answer is, I gave a gift to the girl. And so once again, the girl is our indirect object, even though in this sentence, unlike the one above, the girl is embedded in a prepositional phrase. So this sentence, like the one above, is also type number 3. Our fourth and final action verb sentence structure involves something called an object complement. It's a subject plus a transitive verb plus a direct object plus an object complement. And we're going to look at the sentence, I painted the town red. What you find in I painted the town red is that we have a noun phrase, the town, which looks like our direct object. We do our direct object diagnostics. I painted what? I painted who? And we have an answer. I painted the town. There's no preposition in the way causing the town to be ineligible for direct objecthood. So we say we have found our direct object. Now we might want to go ahead and identify this as sentence type 2. It's a subject plus a transitive verb plus a direct object. The problem is that there's one additional diagnostic that we have to do before we can call this a sentence type number 2, and that is we have to look for an object complement. An object complement follows a direct object and either renames the direct object or states what the direct object has become. So as an example, our sample sentence, I painted the town red, we know for sure that we have the direct object, the town, but we have to look at red and say, is red renaming our direct object or stating what the direct object has become? And we find, yes, the town has become red. And so red becomes our object complement. This is sentence type 4. It's a subject followed by a transitive verb, followed by a direct object, followed by an object complement. We have now looked at the 4 sentence structures that pertain to action verbs. But remember that we're looking for 7 sentence types, which means that there are a remaining 3 that do not pertain to action verbs. These 3 sentence types pertain to linking verbs. Linking verbs are distinct from action verbs because they do not have an inherent action as part of the verb. Instead, linking verbs are state of being verbs, and often they are the to be verb or one of its forms. Recall that the to be verb forms are am, is, are, was, were, been, and being. If the main verb of the sentence is the to-be verb, or if it can be replaced by the to-be verb and retain its same meaning, then you have a linking verb instead of an action verb. As an example, we can look at the sample sentence, the boy is odd. Our main verb and only verb in the sentence is, which is one of the to-be forms. Since our main verb is the be verb, we know that this is not an action verb. This is a linking verb, linking information about the boy and the fact that he's odd. The verb is links those two pieces of information together. Now, if we had the same sentence, the boy seems odd, it's not as clear that it's a linking verb because it's not the to-be form. Yet, we know that we can take the verb seems and replace it with the to-be verb is, and the sentence retains an almost identical meaning. The boy is odd, the boy seems odd. Therefore, seems is functioning as a linking verb because it can be replaced by the to-be verb and retain its same meaning. The most significant thing to remember about a linking verb is that linking verbs do not have objects. So all of the things that we looked for with an action verb in terms of trying to find a direct object or an indirect object or an object complement, none of those things apply to a linking verb. This is because an action verb can have a recipient of the action. For example, I kicked my brother. My brother is the one receiving the kick. In a linking verb, there is no action, and so there's no recipient of the action, no object. Instead, in a linking verb, the verb is simply linking a piece of information about the subject to a piece of information in the predicate. It's there just to provide a link between the subject and the predicate. Even though we're not going to be looking for an object in linking verb sentence types, there are other things that show up in the predicate. One is an adverb of time or place, stating where or when an event has taken place. Another is an adjective that is describing the subject, again, linking information in the predicate back to the subject, but it's typically an adjective that's describing that subject. The final thing is a noun or a noun phrase in the predicate that renames the subject, that just restates what the subject is. It's important to point out that even though the predicate part of the sentence is going to look different than with an action verb, both with action verbs and linking verbs, the subject remains a noun phrase and will never be a prepositional phrase. So that piece of the puzzle remains the same regardless of whether we're talking about action or linking verbs. Our fifth sentence type that we're going to look at is a subject followed by a linking verb followed by an adverb of time or place. In our sample sentence, the party is today, we see that we have one main verb, which is a form of the to-be verb. The form is. The party is. And now we look to see what's after our main linking verb, and we find the word today, which is telling us when the party is going to take place. When we have words that answer when or where, these are adverbs, and we call this sentence structure number 5. Subject plus linking verb plus adverb of time or place. Other adverbs of time or place might be here, there, now, later, or then. In sentence structure number 6, the thing that follows the linking verb is an adjective instead of an adverb, as we saw in sentence structure number 5. Sentence structure number 6 is a subject followed by a linking verb followed by a predicate adjective. Recall that an adjective describes a noun or pronoun and answers the question, which kind what type, or how many. Let's look at the sample sentence, the World Series seemed exciting. First, we note that we have one main verb, and it's a linking verb, the verb seemed. We know it's a linking verb because it can be replaced by the to be verb and retain its same meaning. The World Series seemed exciting. The World Series is exciting. Next, we need to look at what comes after the linking verb seemed. And what we find is the word exciting. Exciting is describing the World Series. The World Series is a noun. Exciting is describing a noun. Therefore, we know that exciting is an adjective. And because it's following a linking verb, we will call it a predicate adjective. This is sentence type number 6. The seventh and final sentence structure is a subject followed by a linking verb followed by a predicate noun. Recall that a noun is a person, place, thing, or idea, and it often follows the structure of determiner, adjective, noun, plus prepositional phrase. We call this a noun phrase. Be very careful because a predicate noun takes the form of a noun phrase, just as a direct object takes the form of a noun phrase. The critical difference is that a direct object follows an action verb, whereas a predicate noun follows a linking verb. In the sample sentence, the Texas Rangers are baseball champions, we find that we have a main verb. It is are, which is one of the forms of the to be verb. This is our requirement for a linking verb. We know that we're not dealing with an action verb because we have the to be form as our main verb. Now that we know we have a linking verb, we need to look after the verb to see what is present there. And we find baseball champions. Baseball is an adjective modifying champions, but the entire thing, baseball champions, is a noun phrase. When we have a noun phrase following the linking verb, we call this a predicate noun. The Texas Rangers are baseball champions is sentence types number 7, a subject followed by a linking verb followed by a predicate noun. At this point, we have reviewed all 7 sentence structures. 4 belong to action verbs, and the other 3, sentence structures 5, 6, and 7, belong to linking verbs. You may be wondering how you can look at a sentence and analyze it using the information that we've provided here. We have a couple of guides for you that are meant to help you know where to start as you do sentence analyses. When you are presented with a sentence and you're trying to determine which of these 7 sentence types the sentence adheres to, there is a sequence of questions that you need to ask yourself. The very first thing you need to do is locate the main verb of the sentence. This will help orient you to where the subject is and where the predicate is. The subject will be before the verb, the predicate after. Once you've identified your main verb, the next question for you to ask yourself is whether that main verb is an action verb or a linking verb. That is, you want to ask, is the main verb a form of the to be verb, or can you replace the main verb with the to be verb and retain the same meaning of the sentence? If it is one of those things, then you have a linking verb and you need to be looking at sentence types 5, 6, and 7. If those things do not apply and you clearly have an action verb, that is, there's some kind of inherent action going on in the sentence, then you need to be looking at sentence types numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you do determine that your main verb is a linking verb, then the next question you need to ask is what is happening in the predicate of that sentence. Is the predicate, does it contain an adverb of time or place? Does it contain an adjective that's describing the subject? Or does it contain a noun or a noun phrase that renames the subject? Recall that a linking verb is always going to link the predicate information to the subject in some way. If your main verb is not a linking verb, and it is indeed an action verb, then the first thing you need to do is to determine if the predicate contains a direct object. From there, if there isn't a direct object, then you want to determine if the sentence also contains an indirect object or an object complement. If you go through all of the diagnostics and realize that there is a direct object, but there are no additional factors such as an indirect object or object complement, then you're looking at sentence type number 2. If there is no direct object whatsoever, then it's sentence type number 1. If you'll follow these 4 steps, locate the main verb, determine if it's action or linking, and then if linking, look at the predicate. If it's an action, also look at the predicate, but for action verbs, look for that object. Then you should be able to determine which of these 7 sentences